We have basically all of the corporate treasury companies, the biggest corporations. We have JP Morgan now kind of talking about embracing Bitcoin. It's like all the people that we were here to kind of disenfranchise, or rather disintermediate. Now they're looking at us, how are Bitcoiners on Wall Street? And then further, how are these guys that just talk about Bitcoin on YouTube on Wall Street right now doing an interview with a publicly traded mining company? And it really starts with you, the individual. It starts with someone taking the action, taking that leap to try to understand what's going on. I really do believe Bitcoin is the solution. We need a better money, and this is why we've dedicated our lives over here at Simply Bitcoin to get more people to save in Bitcoin, to understand Bitcoin, to kind of understand the big picture. I am still a little weary of all of the regulatory clarity conversations that we're hearing. So my adulthood started with okay, I'm already broke, where's there to go from here?
Hi, Opti. How are you doing?
What's up, Robin? I'm doing great, man. As I was just telling you, it's a little early right now, but the synapses are just starting to fire. I got enough caffeine in me to finally wake up. But yeah, man, it's good. It's good to see you. I forget when the last time we did this is a couple months ago, so I'm excited, man. I'm gonna, just let you lead the conversation. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Last time was actually, I think, still 2024, maybe early 2025. It was
yeah, it was, I think it was end of last year. I don't know. It doesn't seem too much. Maybe we're on a 6-month cycle here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But before we get started with all the topics, and I have a lot of interesting stuff that we can go through today, give the viewers and the listeners, for the few, for the 3 people that might not know you, overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks, Robin, but I think it's more than just 3, okay? Let's be a little humble here. But hey, what's up, guys? I'm Optimist Fields, co-founder, co-host of Simply Bitcoin, a daily news show. We have, one of the bigger YouTube Bitcoin-only channels. We drop, I would say, arguably, the most and the best Bitcoin content on YouTube. We have all kinds of shows. We're kind of really known for our live show. Goes live Monday through Friday around 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then we got a bunch of content creators. We got a machine over here of a bunch of awesome, insane, and radical Bitcoiners just dropping all kinds of content. And so we're very focused on creating the best Bitcoin only media on YouTube. And of course, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, all that good stuff. And we're just trying to, get more people into the Bitcoin revolution. This is what it's all about, making sure that you go where people are. We do get a lot of pushback on why we are on YouTube, because, this will probably be on YouTube, but YouTube, you got to kind of play within the guidelines. But our kind of company motto, our thesis is you got to go where people are. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners love to kind of stay in their echo chamber, but our kind of company idea is go meet them where they are, go where they are, kind of talk to them in the language that they understand, so that they can also become obsessed with Bitcoin. And, once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I fully believe there's no going back. And, Robin, the last part of that question is why I'm so obsessed with Bitcoin, or why I'm even here as a Bitcoiner, is because that happened to me. I remember in 2017, Bitcoin started pumping. I heard about it before then, but this one particular day I heard about Bitcoin 3 or 4 times. I came home and I watched literally what I do now, but it was back then Andres Antonopoulos. I watched an hour of his videos, just got hooked in his algorithm. And I just never looked back. It's been what now, 8 years? Is it 8 years? Yeah, 8 years in Bitcoin. And pretty much everything else in my life has kind of just fallen away. And it's just revolving around Bitcoin. All my friends are Bitcoin. I work in Bitcoin. My only money is Bitcoin. And, there's just a process where you kind of finally go down the rabbit hole, and then you realize everything else just doesn't really have as much importance and impact in your life, and you become obsessed, and then your whole life starts to kind of shift and revolve around Bitcoin, and you basically get obsessed with stacking Bitcoin. I always joke that we're basically playing Hungry Hippo here, where, we're playing Pac-Man with Bitcoin. You're just trying to accumulate as much as possible, try to provide as much value to people as possible. Because I really do believe, I really do believe in all the memes, fix the money, fix the world, like the peaceful revolution. And from my perspective, I'm a millennial. Every really big point in my life has been some kind of huge social event. I became an adult during the 2008 financial crisis. So my adulthood started with okay, I'm already broke, where's there to go from here? And then ever since then, every new event is like a pinnacle stop post in my life where, you kind of just keep adjusting. And so as a millennial, you just kind of realize we've been through, I don't even know how many now, 4 or 5 cataclysmic moments in the world. And every new one, we're just built for this. We're just okay, whatever, shrug it off. But from that perspective, I do see a lot of my friends struggling. And, I really do care about my friends and family. And when I look out into the world, it just becomes very clear. A lot of people are struggling financially and they just don't know what the problem is. One of our big kind of thesis right now is there's so many people that can point out the problem, but very few people actually have a tangible solution to fix it. And it really starts with you, the individual. It starts with someone taking the action, taking that leap to try to understand what's going on. Again, I look at myself kind of like a true seeker, not in a corny conspiracy theory, but I try to wrap my world, my mind around what is truth, what is reality, what is the true nature of this world. And that road led me to Bitcoin. I started to realize the kind of financial system, the economic system, a lot of it is kind of fugazi. A lot of it is fake. It's really just pushing numbers to manipulate what you feel about the economy. And then you come from a Bitcoin's perspective, you revolve your whole worldview around Bitcoin, or as Bitcoiners like to say, you work from first principles and you look through the world through the Bitcoin lens and you realize, hey, man, everything is either one, broken, or it's designed to work this way and we're just out of the club. So you can take which side of the coin you want there, but I really do believe Bitcoin is the solution. We need a better money, and this is why we've dedicated our lives over here at Simply Bitcoin to get more people to save in Bitcoin, to understand Bitcoin, to kind of understand the big picture economically, geopolitically, even on a domestic level, politically here in the US, what is actually going on in the world. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of, and that's what we constantly try to get our viewers to get on board with. Of course, we don't have all the information, but we're learning on the job as well. We're just looking through all of the world events through the Bitcoin lens and trying to really parse the information and figure out where we're going from here and what's the best way to position yourself. So it's good to be here, man.
Amazing. I love it, man. You bring more energy on 8:30 than I the whole day.
Well, it's a lot of caffeine. Okay, I have a secret weapon. Everyone jokes, it's dude, how do you get so geeked up, and how do you have so much positivity and optimism every day? I'm dude, I'm running on caffeine here. But really, it's just this is what we're obsessed with. When you have what we believe to be the solution of the world and you're trying to help people, this is our passion. This is what we love. We, also, the number go up aspect is also cool. But when you understand what's going on in the world, you kind of want to scream it at the root, like the mountaintops here. And you want everyone to learn. So you gotta bring some energy when you're on these live streams. No one wants to listen to anyone boring. And when I get ranting, I just get excited and everyone's why are you yelling at me? Quiet down. I'm dude, I'm just excited here. We got some cool stuff to talk about. But yeah, we'll say caffeine.
Before we get started with all the Bitcoin topics, I saw in your X feed a lot of Nasdaq pictures now, and I only barely kind of got to know what are you guys doing, and I was oh shit, you are really leveling up. What are you guys doing there? And was it simply Bitcoin, or was it a different thing, or what's going on there?
Yeah, no. So it wasn't for Simply Bitcoin. One of our partners was ringing the closing bell at NASDAQ. It was their 4-year anniversary, and they invited us over there, and we did an interview. I think we dropped a few of the interviews already. We're gonna kind of do a behind the scenes vlog about it. And it was really surreal, man. It like the whole time, Nico and I, which is my co-host, if you don't know, or my partner, my co-founder, my founder here, we were like blown away. We're like, dude, we started a YouTube podcast and somehow we're at NASDAQ in suits now. Like, what is going on here? I know the Bitcoiners are, some of my friends were trolling. It's like, oh, Nico and Opti are suit coiners now. Like, Opti's a suit coiner. They sold out. And the whole time we were just like, I mean, we can't really show up to hoodies at the NASDAQ closing bell ceremony. Like, we got to kind of, dress the part here. So we were like, yo, how are Bitcoiners on Wall Street? And then further, how are these guys that just talk about Bitcoin on YouTube on Wall Street right now doing an interview with a publicly traded mining company? Like, it just, life's crazy, man. Never give up. Like, keep going. You can just do things, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it also speaks a little bit to the financialization of Bitcoin, and I'm curious on what you're thinking also on that, because there is a lot of backlash on the treasury company side.
Yeah,
I don't get the full aspect of the backlash, because like there's like two sides to this. There's like the one side where there's companies that just want to convert the dollars into Bitcoin, which is like all we do as individuals. And legally, companies are actually also just people. But that's a whole different thing again. Maybe they are more inclined of like having some beef with the fiat games that like Strategy and all the others are playing, which I kind of like, because they're servicing money from bond market, fixed income, like equity, all those things that is locked. And I think Seyr gave a presentation where he kind of said like 97% of the capital is locked and cannot go directly in Bitcoin, and they're just servicing the pipes towards Bitcoin. What's kind of your take on the financialization and all those treasury companies and kind of the Bitcoin going into TradFi?
Yeah, well, my kind of like the initial kind of reaction I had is obviously, like, I think we were always meant to get to this point. Like, if Bitcoin is really going to take over the world, then it was going to inevitably become financialized. Now, I know there is kind of this rumor right now kind of saying that the early libertarian cypherpunks, they're kind of becoming a little disillusioned with Bitcoin, and maybe they're going into like Bitcoin's being co-opted. But I truly believe that if Bitcoin is going to take over the world, this was the path that it was going to take eventually. Maybe it's happening a little early. I don't think that Bitcoin was going to, take over the world from purely a grassroots level. Like, it wasn't just going to be individuals saving in Bitcoin. If we really are going to tap into these huge capital markets and Bitcoin become the world reserve currency, then just, logically think that through. It was going to eventually become financialized. Like, I think this is the natural path of what it was going to do. And then obviously it is what's happening. So you do have to kind of wrap your head around what is actually happening. Is it good? Is it bad? Or rather, is there pros? Is there cons? And I think a lot of us Bitcoiners are doing that. Like we've said on our show, I'm sure, Robin, you've had kind of the same experience, that we kind of had to learn the traditional financial system after we learned about Bitcoin. So, but this is my story. I was kind of really apolitical. I, again, grew up, like became a man in 2008, through the traditional financial crisis. So I just completely tuned it out for a long time. I was like, okay, this is way above my mental capacity here. And I think that's by design. They make it complex by design so that people don't think that they can understand what's going on. So I really, was just kind of working the day to day, trying to save in dollars, really just, as I always used to joke, like getting my kicks on Route 66, as the old motto is. It's like, okay, a little bit nihilistic, right? And then you find Bitcoin. And my story, again, is I just became obsessed with Bitcoin. I tried to understand what Bitcoin was. I did all of the deep dive technical stuff. I tried to understand what Bitcoin's place is in the global landscape. And this is kind of where I'm at now is, understanding where we are as Bitcoiners compared to the traditional financial system, there's a lot more outside of Bitcoin that we do have to understand to really understand its place in the system. And so recently I've been joking, like I'm somehow the macro expert now at Simply Bitcoin, because this is just what I'm focusing on. I see what Seyr's doing, and I really just want to understand what's going on with all his various different products. And like you said, one of the big things that stuck out to me is that exact quote: 97% of all of the world's capital is locked up. It's basically stuck in these pools and it can't find its way out. And so Seyr, again, rocket scientist, probably a genius, is like, all right, well, I'm going to just tailor these products. And that's how we can get the capital from these markets into Bitcoin. And then obviously he's like, I'm going to become the richest man in one of the most profitable companies in the world. And then further, the next step in my journey is what the Trump administration has done. So I'm not the biggest political advocate here. I'm really more of on the like cynical side of politics. So I think, two wings of the same bird kind of idea. That's how I came into Bitcoin. I was apolitical. But now that we have the Trump administration, again, the United States, one of the most powerful countries in the world, starting to embrace Bitcoin, it's took me down a whole new path of trying to understand what's going on with the treasury markets and trying to understand what the chess moves that the Trump administration is doing to position themselves. And so that's what I'm starting to look at right now, like what's going on in the treasury markets, like not only in the US, but what's going on in the Japan treasury markets, what's going on in the British markets, in the EU markets, because that can tell you a lot about the health of the TradFi system. And then now that they're kind of picking sides, like the EU, I don't know if you saw this, Robin, but yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, you saw Christine Lagarde, and I forget what her first name is, but van der Leyen, again, of the ECB. They're going super hard on CBDCs. They're like full, 100 miles per hour towards the CBDC. It's going to apparently be ready in October. And you can tell that that's a 100% reaction to what the US is doing by embracing Bitcoin, embracing stablecoins. And so throughout this whole process, as a Bitcoin, quote unquote, maxi, as a Bitcoin only person, I am looking at what the US is doing by embracing Bitcoin, or even digital assets, as they call it. I hate using the word digital assets because it's really just like a rebrand of crypto. And we all know it's Bitcoin, not crypto. But with that, they're embracing of stablecoins. And then on the other side, the European Union's embracing of CBDCs. So there is a fork in the road right now. And as a Bitcoiner, I think you do have to understand what's going outside of just Bitcoin to really understand our place in the market, in the cultural zeitgeist. And so I don't think the financialization of Bitcoin is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's kind of a both and kind of scenario here. Like it may not be perfect right now, and who knows where this is going in 5-10 years. But I think this was the inevitable path. Like if we are going to become the world reserve currency, then Bitcoin will find its way on Wall Street. It will find its way into the treasury markets. It will tap into the, $1,000 trillion global capital that's available. And the smart people, smarter than me, are out there tailoring these products so that we can basically do the milkshake theory here and just start eating their lunch. Like all that capital will eventually flow into Bitcoin. Now, is it all good? I don't know. I am still a little weary of all of the regulatory clarity conversations that we're hearing. Again, I'm kind of suspicious of politicians in general. So inevitably, what are governments usually good at? It's like nothing. So I feel like there might be more harm than good here. But I think this is a great first step going into what we believe is going to become, the Bitcoin hyper Bitcoinized future that we're heading into. I really do believe Bitcoin is going to take over the world. I don't know what the time frame is here. It could be faster than we think. It could be, Robin and you or me and everyone at Simply Bitcoin. We might be doing this for the rest of our lives here. This might be a lifelong battle or lifelong struggle here. But I think it's happening in real time. And I think a lot of people in Bitcoin are cynical. I kind of always joke privately, like a lot of Bitcoiners have this like underdog mentality that once they start winning, they start like not liking the fact that they're not an underdog anymore, and so they become even more cynical. I think it's the opposite. Again, you know, the moniker, the pseudonym that everyone knows me by, Optimist Fields. It's like you got to always play to win. You got to always be optimistic. Like we are winning, we're gonna win. Always look at the bright side of things. So you know, we got to be winners here. It's not just about having a huge stack and you're getting richer. It's really about the mentality, and I think that's where we kind of are. There is kind of this. I hate to say that we're in a different era, but it does feel like we are in a different epoch in Bitcoin. And with that, we do have to adapt as Bitcoiners, as individuals. Like you constantly have to adapt to the future. And I think this is where we are. A lot of people do still have kind of old mental models that they're, you know, maybe having some kind of internal crisis here. It's like, man, I thought I was a freedom fighter. I thought, you know, I'm a sovereign underdog, libertarian type. And now that we have the BlackRocks of the world, you know, the Donald Trumps of the world, we have basically all of the corporate treasury companies, the biggest corporations. We're like, we have JP Morgan now kind of talking about embracing Bitcoin. It's like all the people that we were here to kind of disenfranchise, or rather disintermediate. Now they're looking at us because I don't think those people are dumb. I take the other side. A lot of Bitcoiners say, "Oh, they don't know what's going on. They're dumb. Like they're hubris. Like they don't understand what Bitcoin is." I take the opposite side. I think they fully understand what Bitcoin is, what the stakes are, but publicly they can't say what we say, because if they say that, the sham's up. So I think this was the inevitable route we're going to take. But with that, I do think it's super important for us Bitcoiners as individuals to continue the Bitcoin ethos, like, you know, taking Bitcoin into custody, running a node, continue to educate people on the right way to use Bitcoin. And right way is a bit subjective, but I think it's more important than ever for us to continue to kind of head forward in the path that we always have. Is like, you need to, you know, first of all, buy some Bitcoin, or rather save in Bitcoin, continuously save in Bitcoin, but you need to take that Bitcoin into custody. And once you're down the rabbit hole, well, you should probably also run a node. Like, these are some basic things. I've been kind of trolling lately that you're not a real Bitcoiner if you're not taking custody or running a node. That's a bit hyperbolic, but I do kind of believe it.
100%. And there's so much, so much in there. First of all, yes, I'm willing to die on this hill with you guys.
Let's go.
I think, I don't think I will have to, I think I'm now 26. So I think, some point in my life, Bitcoin will be so successful that it will be boring to have a channel just on that thing. I truly believe that. But I also believe that it will take some time. It will not happen like next year, maybe in like 15 years, maybe in 20 years. Like, it will take some time till we get there, because it like takes longer to orange pill people. Just, I think every Bitcoiner knows that from personal experience. And one other thing is like really interesting, because if we are fighting and we really want to overtake this traditional financial system, this Wall Street, all those things, I think we first have to integrate. We first have to kind of get into the door. We have to kind of get into the system to actually overtake it. I think it was always unrealistic to, let's build this parallel system, and at some point this will just collapse and we'll go over that. Yeah. And even building this parallel system means that we kind of have to integrate, because there's,
you need bridges.
You need bridges. So it's like, of course, like, how can Bitcoin win if none of the big companies buy it? Like, that would be a major red flag if like no big company is buying it. If there's no strategy, if there's even like no Tesla, no BlackRock, if there's no big company buying it, I think it would be more of a red flag than a sign that we're doing good.
Yeah, if no one it's literally, if no one wants to buy Bitcoin, it's by, you know, by definition not successful. And so the fact that these companies, literally the biggest institutions in the world, want to buy Bitcoin, I think it's just a sign of how successful Bitcoin has been in the last 15 years. And in reality, when you kind of look back at the last 15 years, or rather 16 years, the last 16 years of Bitcoin, it has kind of been like a bubbling, like the water, you know, was boiling. And now it does seem like we're at the point where the water starts to boil. Maybe it's the first, like when you boil someone, maybe it's the first little bubbles there. We've been laying the foundation for the last 16 years. And I think what we might see is explosive adoption, explosive price moves. Like I'm not on the, and actually, Robin, I'd like to get your take on this. I forget if we talked about this last time, but I don't necessarily believe in the diminishing returns meme. Like, I still think that the adoption levels of Bitcoin are very low. Like, I can't really give you a number here, but I think globally, the adoption of Bitcoiners, or rather the adoption of Bitcoin by individuals, I think it's still really, really low. And even the people that may have some Bitcoin exposure, quote unquote, I think very few of them really understand what Bitcoin does. They're just here to kind of like get the gains. And we're seeing the institutions basically do the same thing. I don't necessarily think that all these institutions are here ideologically like we are. They're not ready to die on the hill yet, Robin, but they see the gains. They see the fiat gains here, and of course their job is to make money. So a lot of people that are here, I think they just kind of want to get the gains. They see the Bitcoin outperforming everything else, and so they're like, hey, I want a little bit of that action. But once you kind of get into it, you're like, wait, if you really study Bitcoin, you're like, wait, this is the only thing I should own. And actually, in the last couple of weeks, Robin, it's very interesting to see how the allocation recommendations by some of the biggest people are going dramatically from like 1% to 2% to like 15, 40%. So we're getting to that point where everyone, I think, is kind of looking at everything. They're seeing maybe what their government is doing financially, economically, and they're like, wait, something feels off. And I think that's what the kind of the cultural, societal zeitgeist is right now. Like what the average person is feeling right now is what us Bitcoiners felt a long time ago. It's like, there's something off. There's something wrong here. And what is the solution to fix that? Most people, I don't think, have that. But now they're like, at least they're questioning, like, there's something off here. And once they kind of get to Bitcoin, then everything switches, and you have like a flag planted in the cement here, and then you can kind of start to look around everything, and you're like, oh wait, okay, so this Bitcoin thing is unchanged. You need some kind of truth to hold on to, and then you start to look around the world, and you're like, wait, everything seems kind of broken right now. There's something wrong going on, and until you could really pinpoint the problem, the root cause, then you're kind of sailing with no sail in the water, and you're just going every which way. And I think that's why Bitcoiners are so militant. This is why Bitcoiners are so quote unquote toxic, is because like you're fighting to hold on to that flag cemented in the sand. And we've been doing it for so long that you're also a little bit grouchy and grumpy about it. You're like, dude, I've been telling you forever. Everyone's been calling us stupid and crazy for years now. And it's literally like the Blade meme, I studied the Blade. I studied Bitcoin for years. And now that the world's crumbling, like, you want to come to me? You're like, okay, but I do think like we're here for a reason, and we're at the right place at the right time. And it's really upon us as Bitcoiners that understand what's going on to continue to try to educate, communicate this message to as many people as possible, because this is the safety boat. Like, this is the exit route. And I don't think something catastrophic is going to happen. I think they have a lot of tools in their tool belt to keep this thing going. And especially if people aren't paying attention, they can just continue to paper over the problem. But one day, it's probably going to go down. Like 10, 20 years from now, we'll probably look back and be like, wow, my local fiat currency has been eroded by 99% of its purchasing power. And if I just saved in Bitcoin, I'd be living comfortably right now. We actually had a guest on the other day, and he said, if you don't buy Bitcoin today, then you'll be working for someone that did in the future. And I'm like, damn, like, it sounds a little harsh, but bars.
That sounds very accurate, honestly. And it's interesting because with this diminishing returns, I personally have a hard time believing it, even though all models have diminishing returns. Like the Seyr model has, the power law model has, like I think all the people that put out like models, they all have this diminishing returns. And one problem I have with that is like money is a lot based on trust. So if trust is lost, it can go very, very quickly, and all your models will break to the upside. And this is the one thing where if I listen to the power law, I'm like, yeah, I get it, like adoption of Bitcoin and all those things. But what if the trust in the US dollar is just collapsing? And this can happen like any day. I don't expect it to be happening anytime soon, but it can literally happen any day. Like that, there's like one major event and all of this trust is lost and Bitcoin shoots up to the moon. Like every strategy that evolves around selling Bitcoin or timing where to buy it and all those things. Like I'm very, very of that. Like I'm a lunatic. I just have Bitcoin as 100%. And like, if money comes in, I convert it to Bitcoin. Most of my money is actually already, directly in Bitcoin. So, or the income directly in Bitcoin. I see that I'm a lunatic, but even for the people that have like DCAs and like other portions, like they maybe have some real estate, they maybe have some stocks next to it, they maybe have some other things in there. Even for them, it really does not make sense to time the Bitcoin market, and especially not selling that, because there can always be that one. And actually, Seyr talked about that so geniusly one day, where he said like, if there is I've no clue what actually comparison he made, but I just make something up like this comparable to that. If there's like a game going on, and they're all like kind of equal playing, and then there's all of a sudden a huge different kind of player coming along. I don't know, like there's a college game and Cristiano Ronaldo comes to play that. It completely shifts the whole thing. So where at all of a sudden the rules of the game change. And this is where I think Bitcoin can also go normally, organically, with diminishing returns slowly to hyper Bitcoinization. This can happen. But with money, it's tricky, because if the trust is lost once, like it can completely implode everything.
Yeah, no, while you were talking, I had like in my mind the idea of if you kind of visualize the Bitcoin market cap or the Bitcoin price by kind of it's like like a cup here, like a vessel. And the capital that's been coming into Bitcoin has been coming in like a trickle. It's like a drop here, a couple more drops here, and then you kind of get a stream. And that's kind of the price fluctuations we've seen. But if at a certain point you really open up that faucet and the waterfall comes down, it fundamentally changes the whole game going on here. So I think from what we've been seeing, we have seen a trickle of capital come in. Maybe it's like a stream, like a pea stream, just a constant stream here. But if that faucet completely opens up and all of the water comes in, it's hard to see how we're just going to go up diminishing returns, power law, like all the models are broken. That's when we get into the S curve adoption. Wait, which way? That way? No, wait, this way. And that's where you get that like jump up. And as the Seyr meme goes, it's going up forever, Laura. Like once you get enough capital, and like you said, once trust is lost in either a local fiat currency or the big dog here, because you can kind of look at it like a hierarchy of fiat currencies. The dollar is still kind of the big dog, and then everything else is under it. And all the ones under it will eventually kind of collapse or stumble, and people will lose faith in it, and they'll move to the next higher ring, and eventually they'll get to the dollar. And at some point, once everyone either gets to the dollar or they wake up and they realize, hey, I don't need to play this game of just climbing the ladder, I can just jump into Bitcoin, then I think all bets are off.
Which brings me to the next point, which is interesting. I think the last time we recorded was either right before or right after Bitcoin hit 100K. I know that 100K was a big topping point of like, what will it do? And I don't remember if we were right before or right after we hit the 100K part. And we have this weird thing the last year where there's no bad news. Like, I don't know how, like there's no FTX blowing up. There's no Celsius going on. There's like no news that really came out that is kind of objectively bad for Bitcoin. I don't know, like you're more focused on the news with the live stream. Maybe you have something, but I just haven't seen anything. And then at the same time, we have extremely positive news. I literally yesterday talked with a guest on the first Bitcoin buys. And I know how we celebrated in 2020, Square buying $50 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, if any company buys $50 million of Bitcoin, nobody cares. It's like, it's not a news anymore. If someone buys $50 million of Bitcoin, it has to be like Apple buying 50 million to be news. But they would probably buy a lot more if they buy something. We are in this cycle where everything is extremely positive, but the price isn't jumping as high as we expected it to be. I mean, we are in the last 12 months, like up 70%, which is a lot, as a really a good
Pretty
development.
Good.
But it feels like we're not like shooting up like in the past cycles. And I think Nico, I had Nico on a few weeks ago, and we talked about that this cycle is kind of the best for news and the worst for the price. How do you look at that? And do you expect something where like this, there's like something kind of boiling up and not really exploding yet?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to troll Nico a little bit. He's a perma bear. So, you know, he's always bearish. No, I'm trolling. He's super bullish, but we've been kind of saying that on our show for a while. It's like, this is the best cycle for news, but the price action has been, I would say, lackluster. And there's two kind of thoughts that I have here. Maybe we're just dopamine fried from what we've seen in the past. You know, 2017 was insane. 2021 was kind of a letdown. Maybe we got PTSD from 2021 and we're like, dude, don't do it again. Like, I have a friend who keeps texting me. He's a Bitcoiner. He's fully committed, but he's like, dude, it's going to double top, man. Like, this is the local top. And I'm like, I'm just like fighting him. Like, no, dude, you're wrong. Like, we're going to pump. But I think we all have PTSD, or we're just dopamine fried here. We're just like, you know, addicts. Like, please give me more gains, man. But like you said, if you really kind of look at from the Bitcoin price from the bottom of this cycle, to where it is now, like it's great returns, you know, like for compared to everything else is great returns. But in Bitcoin terms, or rather kind of comparing them to Bitcoin cycles, the price has been kind of asleep. It's, you know, it's been boring. I've been joking for the last couple of months. It's like, we're just going to get bored to death here. Like, I joke to Nico all the time. It's like, are we just trading the S&P 500 now? Like, are we just boring boomers now? We just trade the S&P 500. We get a little pump. Maybe it corrects a little bit and it just keeps going up and to the right. Like, I think there is a good case of that, a good case to make. If you look at the S&P 500 chart historically, and you kind of lay that out to the last couple of years since the ETF launch, like, the structure does look very similar. It's just going to continue to go away. It's going to continue to go up and to the right. It's just going to be very boring and stable climb. It's going to bore us to death to $1 million. Like, that could be the new structure. And again, I hate to be this time is different, but fundamentally things have changed. Like what we just said, the news around Bitcoin is insane. If we had this type of news stories in 2017 or 2021, obviously that would have been too early. This is where we are on the time, but the price would have freaking skyrocketed. Back in the day, any good news story when it was a bull run, the price would just go freaking nuclear. And in a bear market, literally any tiny news, the price would crater. Now we do have a little more stable market. But with all that being said, I'm still convinced that this is going to be a huge end of the year. What that means in price, I don't know. You know, I know we have it takes more capital to move the Bitcoin market. So more capital has to come in. But when you're looking at all the news and all these new recent stories, like, there's so much capital coming in. We basically just got the green light from the US. We're seeing the green light from huge corporations. Yes, we haven't had the Apples of the world yet come into Bitcoin, but all the buys that they have announced, and I don't think all of those buys have actually hit the market yet. They're kind of either raising money, announcing they want to buy this, so they're projecting what they want to do. Once they start buying in bulk, I think this price can go absolutely nuclear. And if you kind of overlay this cycle compared to old cycles, then what a lot of people are saying, what I kind of think is that we'll probably have like a very great end of the year, like a Q4 type pump, whether that's November, December, maybe late October is kind of what I'm thinking. And I've been saying for a while, you know, my gut feeling here is like 200 to 300K. I've been saying that for, I don't know, like over a year, maybe 2 years, but maybe I was at the peak of the bear market. Like, dude, we're going to 300K. But again, as the meme goes, if everyone's saying a certain price range, then it's just not going to happen. And what I'm hearing from a lot of people, I think the consensus right now is like 150K tops. I'm like, it just makes no sense to me. Like, I feel like it's going to blow past that. Though I have been, I kind of went down a Mark Moss rabbit hole over the weekend, and I really like what he's saying. One, because it confirms my bias and it's super bullish. He's like, dude, we're going to keep pumping into 2027, $1 million by 2027. I'm like, hey, feed me the hopium, man. Just keep it coming. But yeah, I think with all the news surrounding Bitcoin and the new kind of entrants, the new players in the space, it's hard to see how we're going to just maintain 120K, 150K right now. If all these buys do actualize and we see this kind of like competitiveness to buy as much Bitcoin as possible, like this price can move very quickly. Again, Bitcoin is a tiny market when you compare it to everything else. I think the last metric by Croesus is like, it's what, 0.2% of global capital. It's like, it's tiny. It's still tiny. It's huge to us. Like $2 trillion Bitcoin market cap. We're like, hell yeah, man. Like we're officially a player. If you're an investment fund manager, if you're a huge private bank, if you're a nation state, like a $2 trillion asset is like, okay, it's like there, maybe I can invest in it. But if I invest a lot of capital in it, I might actually kind of move the market too much. Hence why you're seeing a lot of the financial engineering right now of people trying not to move the Bitcoin price, buy off, over the counter, trying to figure out ways to, like Seyr does, just buy a little bit constantly so you don't really mess up your buy orders here. But I think at a certain point, we are going to see just like crazy amounts of buying when all of this fiat capital hits Bitcoin. I think we will see, as Samson Mao's been saying, as Kaiser's been saying, the Omega God candles. I forget which one's which, but like the 10K to 100K candles, like it's coming. And I think it's kind of historically the meme of, sell in May and go away. Like the summers are usually kind of quiet in general. But the price is doing really well. Like I think considering all the stuff we've seen in the last couple of months, like there's two big factors that we saw. There's been huge economic turmoil with like the Trump tariffs. Bitcoin was very resilient through that. Like there was a huge, geopolitical kind of standoff. Bitcoin was still very strong throughout that. And then recently we saw, a lot of OGs selling coin, like the $80,000 Bitcoin sell. I think it dropped like 1 to 3%. In the old days, before my time in like I forget if it's 2016, 2017, but there's the infamous Bearwell, and he sold 30,000 coins and everyone was battling a 30,000 coin Bearwell and the price, was cratering. Now we have someone selling 80,000 coins at one time and the market barely flinches. Like if this doesn't signal strength to people, I don't know what they're looking at. I think that we just get caught up and look at the Bitcoin price. We don't really factor like this is a big market. This is the most liquid market in the world. And I think it's going to react very favorably. I don't think we're in like super cycle territory. A lot of my friends are saying super cycle. I'm trying to avoid saying super cycle, but it does feel like the price is going to rip. And if you're not in Bitcoin right now, you're going to, get caught on the sidelines with your pants down. And all of us are just going to be going crazy. We're just going to be like, it's pumping. Let's go. Like I told you. I always joke that, it's a top when you're pricing your net worth in new yachts and new supercars. And, you're telling your friends like, you're dumb. You should have bought. You should have listened to me. So until we get to that frenzy euphoria mode, I think we still have a lot of room to run. Like, the consensus I'm getting from a lot of friends is kind of this disbelief. It's like, are we really going to rally? And again, if you look at the Wall Street psychological chart, disbelief is like right before it actually starts running. We're kind of in that disbelief hope phase right now. And I don't know, Robin, you talk probably to more Bitcoiners than I do. Is that the consensus you're getting from them? Everyone's kind of in disbelief and hope, right? Like maybe we're inching towards hope, but most of us are in disbelief. We're like, nah, it's not going to rally. I really want it to rally, but it doesn't seem like it's going to rally. And all that's telling me it's like, it's going to rip. Like it's going to rip.
the first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from Coin Vigilant represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what BitBox did. BitBox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a BitBox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. I think the consensus is that the players are very different. You know, like we now have a lot of different players in this cycle than in the 2021 cycle, definitely in the 2017 cycle, with different players. Because what is price? Price is supply and demand. With supply being so fixed, with so steady, you only have the demand side of the equation. So the demand side of the equation makes the price, basically. So when we have amazing big players in the game that are pushing for that and bringing that, like George Boudin is great in explaining that. He's like, we went from a small boat to an aircraft carrier. And that's kind of what is happening. And the thing with an aircraft carrier is, like, once it kind of goes into one direction, it gets very hard to steer in a different direction. But once it goes in that direction, it's like impossible to get it off this direction. And previously, Bitcoin was just like going in one direction. You can just turn in another direction the next day. And I think that's an interesting perspective on the Bitcoin price also, because now we are getting this upwards price movement, this kind of like slow upwards grind. And there's so much positive upbuilding towards that, and the aircraft carrier is kind of going upwards, where it's really hard to get it down again, like to dip the nose in like a bear market. And previously we had retail in like 2017 was completely retail driven. There was not a company driven or institution driven market. So when you have retail driven, you have fear of missing out, but also panic selling on the downgrade. I don't think strategy will panic sell. Like, I don't think BlackRock is selling panically if Bitcoin price goes down a little bit. They're just like, hey, yeah, like it's cheaper now. Let's buy more. And so the whole price movement can actually, and I hate to also bring up super cycles, but cycles will change once the players in the game change. And it's probably the biggest change in players ever in the Bitcoin history, because up until now it was retail. Now it's like a little bit retail, and we can also talk about the Google trends and how retail is actually not here. But the big thing is like, how many companies are now here? Like 50 million Bitcoin buy was a big news 2020. Now it's like nothing. Like, if you're not buying at least 1 billion, you're not even making it on the Twitter feed.
For reals. Yeah, no, to your point about like retail not being here, I forget who posted this chart the other day, but I think it's even worse. Like, retail is getting their lunch ate right now by institutions. The institutional accumulation that you're seeing, and there's a chart that's going around, and I'm blanking on what it's called right now. Again, it's a little early, not enough coffee, but there's a chart that went out, I think it was last week, and it was comparing the institutional demand, like institutionally buying Bitcoin, versus the retail side. And retail's selling their Bitcoin right now, and this could be, you know, old holders kind of, I don't know, securing some profits here, or you know, realizing their purchasing power, maybe is a better way of saying that. But the institutions are scooping up so much Bitcoin, and like you said, the retail Google trends are basically non-existent. It's starting to pick up a little bit. A lot of people have been saying that's because people don't search on Google anymore. Maybe they're talking to their chat GBT or whatever, and things are changing. And further, maybe everyone already kind of knows what Bitcoin is. So maybe our Google trend shouldn't be just the word Bitcoin itself. It should be buy Bitcoin. And if you look at that, it is kind of, you know, kicking up a little bit. So I really think most people have probably heard about Bitcoin. They still don't know how to buy Bitcoin. But yeah, I think that is the fundamental shift that we're seeing. It's exactly what you said, Robin. Like the new investor, quote unquote, the new person that's buying Bitcoin is these institutions. And every cycle in the past has been retail driven. Now we're in this new era, new epoch. You know, I don't want to say this time is different, because then people are going to be like, you're a liar, and you said this time is different, and you talk about Bitcoin every day. It's like, hey, can I update my mental models as well, man? I'm not perfect. I'm looking at the same information that you're looking at. But with these new players coming into the space, like you said, that is the fundamental question. If these institutions are coming into Bitcoin, what is their psychology around Bitcoin? So I've been hearing kind of two different views. One is the exact one that you said, is like, this is a more sophisticated investor. So they're not going to panic sell. They're not even going to panic buy anymore. Like, when they commit to something, there's a plan. They follow the plan. And, you know, maybe they have a target where they sell, but they completely detach their emotions from the market. And of course, like a market, looking at a chart, what you're seeing is just the collective psychology of every buyer in the market. And you're trying to guess where it's going to go. And so with these new sophisticated investors, you are seeing that, hey, maybe the structure of Bitcoin price does change, and maybe they're in it for the long run. Like I started this by saying, hey, they might not be as ideological as we are, but they might have a higher conviction in this asset that is Bitcoin. And if that's true, then we might not be seeing huge bear markets anymore. Yes, we'll see some corrections. Who knows? 30, maybe a 50% correction is kind of the working model I'm going. Most people are like, 4-year cycle intact, we're going to get an 80% drop. And that's the other side of the aisle. It's like, yes, the institutional investor, even though you can argue that is retail, you know, retail is just buying through these institutions. Like, it's not Larry Fink buying all this Bitcoin. It's customers of BlackRock that want exposure into Bitcoin, and they're also human. They're not all sophisticated investors. But if you're kind of generalizing here, like, Wall Street knows how to trade, and they completely detach their emotions from the asset and what they're trading. So that could fundamentally change the market structure of Bitcoin. And then, so like you said, it could just be a freaking slow grind up, you know, more conviction. So the lower highs, less selling at the top. So it could be a little more structured pump. But then I also heard people say, like, look, Wall Street institutional investors, like they don't like to lose money. So if there is kind of a panic scenario, like the price could dump even more because they're selling in heavier kind of, tranches. So they're selling more and they're trying to buy it at the bottom. So, my working model is if that is correct, then maybe we're in the 30 to 50%. But if they don't have the ideological conviction that we do, we could be back into like 80 plus, bear market corrections, and then they try to buy it up. But I think that would mean not as long bear market. So it won't be a 2-year bear market. It might be a heavy dump, and then we kind of retrace in 3 to 6 months, which I think would be, I would like that better. Like, 2-year bear markets are rough, especially if you're just in Bitcoin only, you're in the Bitcoin media. If you live off your Bitcoin, you start spending more Bitcoin than you wanted to. And you're like, no, like we're going back up. It's going to go back quickly. If it takes a while, you start depleting your stack a little bit, and you're like, yo, this bear market sucked. So I'm, as being all in, I'm like, hopefully we don't get a 2-year prolonged bear market anymore. I wouldn't mind a huge correction at a time, but I don't want to be down there for 2 more years. Like that's just brutal.
But I would love an 80% drop.
But exactly, like you want you want the discount, but also like you don't want to deplete your stack. So you're like, give me the 80%, but maybe for 3 months, maybe. Like I'll be okay with that.
I guess we just want to have more Bitcoin.
Dude, that's the game, right? You're playing Pac-Man. You're playing Hungry Hippo here. You just want more Bitcoin.
I want to, because we brought it up, the Google Trends thing, and it is interesting, and there are like many things to it, because there's like, if you say buy Bitcoin, the search trend, it's down a lot, like it's 13% from like 2017. If you go to YouTube trends and not Google, it's a lot more balanced, I would say. So we have like 30% of 2017. And interesting enough, you can compare this whole thing to, let's say, Coinbase. My theory around that is like, if you say you want to buy Bitcoin, maybe you already know of an exchange and you're not typing in buy Bitcoin, but you're typing in like the exchange that you heard of in some marketing. I don't know. Coinbase is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, Coinbase or like Binance. I don't know.
Yeah, like Binance, and if you see, it's like basically the same thing. There's like there's some differences here. Like here is like a little bit more, but like it kind of tracks each other, so it does not make a huge difference. And the whole AI argument of like everyone is still like searching things on AI, that makes a lot of sense. Like I use like sometimes hours on end on AI every single day. But if I want to buy Bitcoin, I cannot do this directly on ChatGPT or something like that. It would be crazy if that would be already the case.
Yes, dude. You just give it your bank account and it freaking just buys. I don't know if I do that, but hey, it would be nice.
And so it's like I think it just shows that the retail trend is kind of still downwards. Like we are nowhere near, and I think we also know it from our personal experience. If we go out and talk with people around Bitcoin and go out like in maybe in a family circle, like when we are invited to a friend's party where there's like only the one friend that you know and like all the other ones are like new, and you're like, hey, what's the Bitcoin thing? And they're like, oh yeah, like I don't know, I have no clue. So I think Bitcoin isn't as big of a topic as it was 2017. Everyone was talking about Bitcoin in 2017. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. And that's literally my heuristic, bro. I always say, look, I know a lot of Bitcoiners cut everyone off that's not a Bitcoiner in their lives, but like I still hang out with some normies every once in a while. I need to not think. I need to turn my brain off every once in a while. But even if you don't do that, I always kind of have this. It's kind of like a thought experience. Like, look, go around, I don't know, get the grocery store or like a bar or a restaurant or whatever. And while you're sitting there, ask yourself, how many of these people hold Bitcoin or understand Bitcoin? And maybe this is our cynical take, but usually when you're sitting in this area, you're like, maybe 1 or 2 people in this whole restaurant, in this whole grocery store, in this whole bar, either hold Bitcoin or maybe are interested in it. And I just use that heuristic to be like, most people are either completely oblivious or they just completely don't care. and that's going to wreck them, and it is what it is. But when you ask yourself these questions and you kind of think about it and you look around and you kind of feel the actual vibes of the place, you're like, yeah, most people probably aren't holding Bitcoin. But there is something interesting on that chart that you showed, Robin, is that if you look at where we are right now, there is an uptick, like it is going up a little bit. So if that is an indicator, and if we can still see at the very end, like, yes, we're lower than everything, but it is starting to go up a little bit. So if we can still kind of use Google Trends as an indicator, and we're kind of trying to map where the price of Bitcoin's going, then, it looks like we are still early in this bull market, and the end of this year is going to get crazy. So it's hard not to be bullish all the time around Bitcoin. Again, we probably all have PTSD, and we're like, I don't want to believe, I don't want to believe it's going to be a double top, but it might be. We're kind of hedging our own bets here. But that Google trend right there, like, you are starting to see the uptick, and it's probably because of all of the news we've seen. There's crazy news around Bitcoin, nation states getting into Bitcoin, literally the biggest banks in the world getting into Bitcoin. We're starting to see, Bitcoin backed loans. We're starting to see that the biggest, real estate institutions are starting to embrace Bitcoin as collateral. It's like Bitcoin is becoming a mainstream conversation. It's entering the mainstream conversation. It's been mainstream to us forever. We think it's the most important invention since probably like the wheel or sliced bread or something like that. It's the most important thing in the world right now. I think everyone's kind of distracted by AI in general. Everyone's like, AI is going to take over the world. AI is going to take our jobs. And like, I'm more on the fence on AI. Nico loves AI. He's a huge AI guy. And I'm a little indifferent. I'm like, hey, it's going to be a useful tool for us, but I'm not as like overhyped on it. But while the collective consciousness is focused on AI, Bitcoin is just kind of building on the back end. And we're like, hey, look, AI is going to fundamentally change our world, but so is Bitcoin. And no one's paying attention to Bitcoin. Everyone's like, oh, that's old news. Humans have this weird psychological tick where it's like, give me the new technology, the new tech, the new shiny tech. That's the cool tech. You even see it in the Bitcoin space. Every shitcoin creator is like, Bitcoin's old, like, why do you want that old clunky coin? You like, get this new shiny, turd coin here, fart coin or whatever it is. And you're like, bro, like, stability, long-term trust in a coin that just is boring and stores your value. That's what you need in a good money. So I think a lot of people are probably disregarding Bitcoin right now. Because there's new technology, there's some new shiny tech. We've all probably seen what NVIDIA's done. It's been basically, besides MicroStrategy, outperforming everything else. And then, Seyr comes out here, he's just buying Bitcoin and outperforms everyone. It's like, well, maybe you just need to buy Bitcoin. Maybe you just need that boring thing. Like, in the face of uncertainty, you want some kind of certainty. Like, you need something certain. And that's why we're all Bitcoiners. Like, look, the world's freaking crazy right now. Like, I don't know what timeline we've jumped in. I don't know where we are in the this moment in history compared to the grand history of humanity. But it does seem like the most interesting times in the world right now. Like, you are starting to see tectonic shifts. Like, things are changing in real time. You're starting to see more and more ridiculous stuff come out of the clown world. And you're like, look, I don't know what is going on anymore. All I know is I save in Bitcoin. I talk about Bitcoin. I try to get my health right. I try to get, my ducks in a row and help other people do that. And you're going to be positioned great, because I think it's only going to get crazier from here. That's kind of my thesis on where we are right now.
I fully agree. One more topic I want to get into before we get to the end routine of the podcast. What's your take on stable coins? I feel like they could be a major Trojan horse. At the same time, like that you definitely saw this mashup video of the last Bitcoin conferences where like everyone said stable coins. And I heard an interesting take the other week where someone said like, stablecoins could be the second Bretton Woods, like Bretton Woods 2.0, where the US dollar is kind of pushed through the world with stablecoins, and they are kind of getting the Bitcoin while they are pushing the stablecoins. How do you look at that whole development?
Yeah, so I originally was very cynical on stablecoins. I came from like the Bitcoin only. Like, why do we need stablecoins? Like, they're just dollars. Like, it's just pseudo fiat money. Like, but they should like we don't need that stepping stone. They're gonna get trapped in the synthetic dollar. They should just be buying Bitcoin only. And then recently, I have kind of changed my tune, not so much because I got the knock on the door or whatever. It's just like as more information kind of comes out and I start to see especially what the Trump administration is doing and how they're trying to position themselves with stable coins. I think what you said, like the Bretton Woods angle analogy, is like really, really spot on. It's the Mar-a-Lago Accords now. And again, I went down this rabbit hole with Mark Moss over the weekend. Well, not with him, but watching his content. You probably saw the Safety speech at the Bitcoin conference 2025, where even he was like, stable coins, they might not be the big boogeyman that we all believe it is. And so anyways, what I think is happening, and obviously I'm not smart enough to like really come to this conclusion myself. It's really just listening to very, very smart people. I think Mark Goodwin's been really spot on this. Of like the Bitcoin dollar system is starting to get implemented, whether that's like a dystopian system, whether that's worse than where we are now or an acceleration from where we are now. I think I think the argument is still up for debate on that side. But what I see going on, again, like the Mar-a-Lago Accord, especially with the push that we're seeing from Scott Bessent and the Trump administration and Bo Hines and all the stablecoin legislation and all the stablecoin bills being passed in the U.S., I think what is being done is they are using stablecoins to essentially expand the money supply without actually expanding the M2 money supply. And so what that basically means is, they're going to pump up stablecoins. Stablecoins buy treasuries. So they're going to continue to debase the fiat, the dollar purchasing power. As Lynn Alden always says, you can't stop this train. So they're going to expand the money supply with stable coins, but that injects and really continues the domination of US dollar. And so we might be entering an era where US dollar dominance is at the highest it's ever been. It's kind of restructuring the U.S. empire through stablecoins. That essentially means that dollars now can get into parts of the world that it could never get to before, and that would bring new demand into the dollar. But what's going to happen, again, like Lynn Alden always says, you can't stop this train. And so they are trying to essentially inflate their way out of their national debt. The U.S., if you look at the U.S. national debt, if you look at unfunded liabilities, there is no way that they can pay this off. Like, there is no way that they can pay this off. But basically by the old mechanisms, like interest payments now in the U.S. are even higher than, the military industrial expenditure. It's like we literally pay more money on our debt interest just to finance our interest on our debt than we do with all of the airships and all the military and all of the guns and freaking bombs, all that stuff. Like, we spend more money just dealing with our debt than we do with the military. It's insane. And so the name of the game is essentially inflate your way out of it. The only way they can do that is by increasing the money supply, by destroying the purchasing power of the dollar. But they can't do that in real time. If you listen to what Trump's been saying publicly, he's really been saying, hey, we want a stronger dollar. We want interest rates low. Well, if you see what they're doing on the back end, that's not what they're doing. They want to, decrease the power of the dollar relative to other currencies, and they do want interest rates low. So that means it's just like freer, easier money. They're going to expand the money supply, but everyone knows the indicators now. So they can't just print more money on M2 money supply. They have to find a new alternative way to expand the money supply, and that's where stable coins fit in. And I know a lot of people have been kind of following the Scott Bessent, Jerome Powell, or rather Trump versus Powell like theater here. People forget that Scott Bessent and Jerome Powell literally meet up every Monday and have lunch. Like, they're not fighting each other. That publicly maybe they are, but I think in private they're working in lockstep. Again, they can't really show you they're expanding the money supply. Like they need to expand the money supply. They need to really print dollars for M2 to like, explode for us to really get out of our debt. They need to inflate their way out of their debt. So what you're seeing Scott Bessent do and the Trump administration is, I think, embrace stable coins so that they can expand the money supply stealthily, basically like a stealth QE, and decrease the purchasing power, or rather the relative strength of the dollar via other currencies, so that we can kind of bring our production here. We can, get better imports and exports. But with that comes the inevitable. If they inflate the fiat currency, if they inflate the dollar away, that's going to destroy your purchasing power. But on the flip side, that's going to make assets freaking skyrocket. And as everyone knows, the Trump administration, or rather any politician, they have like one modus operandi is like, make sure that your shareholders don't get poorer. Well, they're not holding dollars, they're holding assets. So, hey, if you're on Main Street, they destroy your purchasing power by inflating the dollar away. The rich people's assets go up. But with that, as a Bitcoiner, that means that our Bitcoin is going to shoot freaking huge. And I think this is kind of the missing metric for most people. It's like Bitcoin is an asset. It's a hard asset. It's the fastest horse in the race. And so if gold goes up like 5x, I think historically Bitcoin goes up like 8x or 14x or something like that. So if they are going to inflate their debt away and assets are going to skyrocket, well, Bitcoin's going to shoot up even higher than anything else. And I think what a lot of people are seeing right now, or rather what a lot of people aren't seeing right now, is I think they're underestimating how high Scott Bessent and Donald Trump want Bitcoin to go, because the higher Bitcoin goes, we all know, a lot of stablecoin truthers are out there are saying, the Bitcoin price is just backed by stablecoins, bro. Like they print more stablecoins out of thin air, and that's the only thing driving Bitcoin. It's like, well, they're also really stablecoins are attached to treasuries, and so the U.S. government needs stablecoins to get interest in people buying treasuries. No one wants to buy treasuries right now. Why would you buy you'd only buy treasuries if you have capital stuck in that 97%, market that Seyr was talking about earlier. But if you're anyone else, you're not buying treasuries. If you're looking at anything, you're trying to buy gold, you're trying to buy Bitcoin, you're trying to buy real estate. Like you want to maximize your gains. And so they're in lockstep here. Again, Mark Goodwin's Bitcoin dollar. Love Mark. Usually he takes the kind of dystopian angle, like, bro, we're walking into a dystopian tyranny. They're telegraphing every move. He might be right. But from our perspective is like the only thing you can protect yourself here is with Bitcoin. They're going to destroy the purchasing power of the dollar. Like they're going to inflate their debt away. So however they do that, whether that's the Fed printing money, whether that's the US embracing stable coins and essentially stable coins buying treasuries so that they can continue to create money, which is just debt, your assets are going to skyrocket. And if you're not holding assets, you're absolutely going to get wrecked. And the best asset to hold, the best money to hold is Bitcoin. So it is this kind of like, I don't know, tandem thing going on here where they're saying one thing, they're doing another. It does at first made me feel a little weird when I started to understand stablecoins. I'm like, why are they embracing stablecoins so much? Like, look at the Trump administration or Congress was like, why is the first quote unquote digital assets bill that they pass a stablecoin bill? At first you're like, dude, you need to be Bitcoin only. Like they don't understand what's going on. And you're like, no, I think they fully understand what's going on. They have to maintain US dollar dominance. This is their literal job here. And they understand that stable coins will maximize treasuries. And so they're pushing the stable coins. They're trying to inflate their debt away. And if they do that, well, a lot of people are going to get wrecked. But as Bitcoiners, you're in a good position because Bitcoin's the fastest horse in the race. So in the end, it is all good for Bitcoin. But we were joking here the other day. I was talking to Nico's wife, and she's like, wait, like, so if they're going to inflate the dollar away, does that mean that Bitcoin's going and all that money is going to eventually go into Bitcoin? Like, are we happy that they're inflating the dollar away? And you're like, well, on the one hand, like you are, because you're going to get richer, but on the other hand, like you're not, because everyone is going to get wrecked, and maybe society is going to get worse because, you know, the debt gets out of control. So you don't really want to cheer on the money printer, but you understand all roads lead to Bitcoin. So the more global liquidity they have, the higher Bitcoin's going to go. Again, as the meme goes, you know, there is no top for Bitcoin because there is no bottom for how much fiat they will print. And so I think we are entering some very interesting times right now. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of this whole stablecoin thesis, the Mar-a-Lago Accord. You know, again, I come from all of this through the Bitcoin lens. And as I constantly have to keep updating my mental models on the show and stay up to date, you're starting to look at different corners of the news that you probably weren't looking at before to really try to understand what's going on. And it really just clicked for me last week. I went down a rabbit hole with a rabbit hole of Mark Moss's content, and I think he's spot on. It's like they're going to inflate their debt away. They're going to use stable coins to do it stealthily. That means assets are going to freaking skyrocket, and Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race. So there's only one thing to really be doing right now, and that's saving in Bitcoin and creating businesses that can give you more Bitcoin, or rather can give you cash flow so you can buy more Bitcoin. Like, we really are on the vanguard of this new digital technological revolution here. And this is a once in a generation moment. Like, this is maybe a once in a species moment here. We are transitioning from a very bad money to potentially the best money the world has ever seen. It's like, do not sleep on this opportunity.
I fully and 100% agree with that. And it's also interesting. I think I want to let it stand like that. I think you made it a perfect ending point, actually. I don't want to ruin that. We have an end routine where I ask the same question to each and every one of my returning guests. And the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
Yeah, so the one thing I've learned outside of Bitcoin, I think it's just how important my health is. You know, I've been in the gym, I've been trying to eat better. And then Bitcoin really kind of showed me that whole thing. And, you know, it's not so much a virtue vanity thing. It's really the idea of like, look, if we have the best money in the world, if this thing's going up forever, then I want to make sure I'm here for a long time so that I can usher in these sats as best as possible. And so I really, really think more Bitcoiners should focus on their health, you know, focus on getting fit. Like, to get the message across better, you have to look good. Like, I don't want to listen to someone that's a slob, you know. Hey, not here to hate on anyone, you know. I'm not trying to judge anyone here, but our message gets across better when you are the healthiest peak performance person you've ever been. So like, you have to take your health seriously, you have to take your look seriously. You know, look, I know a lot of Bitcoiners don't really care about looking rich, but you gotta, you know, almost to Jordan Peterson, and I'm not really the biggest Jordan Peterson fan, but like, you know, take a shower, brush your teeth, like, be presentable. My mom's been telling me this my whole life. And now, again, I can say, hey, mom, you were right. But like, when you go out in public, when you try to talk about Bitcoin, you are a representation of the message. So you need to look at your best that you can. And part of that is, hey, you know, get fit. Get some muscles, you know, get a haircut. I know you don't want to get a haircut. I know you don't want to spend sad, but the medium is the message. Like, you are the message. You are the messenger of this message. So make sure that you are peak performance. You're as healthy as you can be. You're really taking what you're eating seriously. Like, everything you need to do to be as healthy, peak performance as possible is what you should be doing. Like, we need Bitcoiners like us to be here long term so that we can deploy our Bitcoin in the correct place and we can really steward this Bitcoin mission. So yeah, you know, a little looks maxing to end this show. Like, look good, take a shower, smell good, get a haircut, you know, lose some weight, or rather get fitter, gain some muscle, whatever you need to do. I think that's super important. And also, you know, plug Jack Cruz a little bit. Look at the sunrise every morning. You know, get back on your circadian rhythms. It's like, every morning, wake up, look at the sunrise for a little bit, detach from the technology for a little bit. Like, your health is super important. That's the main message. Like, emphasis on health, being fit, make sure you are kind of unplugging from, look, I know I'm streaming with the blue lights, but like watch the blue light, exposure. That's the most important thing. Like my health is very important to me now. Like I want to be here long term. And for a long time, like I grew up eating junk food. Like I always joke I have an iron stomach because I grew up eating freaking Pop Tarts and Tang and freaking Mexican candy. So like the food's not going to kill me anymore. But I want to be here long term. I want to be healthy. I'm trying to be a good example of what it means to be a Bitcoiner. And part of that is your actual physical appearance. Like I think looks do matter. And we should take it a little more seriously. Like maybe if you're not really a Bitcoin talking head, then maybe it doesn't matter. But if we are entering into the mainstream, maximizing how your appearance looks, I think it's one of the most important things. But realistically, every Bitcoiner needs to be fit. We are battling a spiritual war here. Like we need soldiers in the trenches. So make sure you guys are putting in the effort is all I'd like to say.
And every Bitcoiner is at some point a Bitcoin talking head.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you don't say bad things about my hair.
Well, dude, this is why I'm wearing a hat. It's early. I took a shower. I'm like, I don't really feel like putting gel in my hair right now. So hats are key, bro. I wear literally everyone. If you watch this and you watch Simply Bitcoin, I pretty much put a hat on when I'm like bad hair day. I'm like, all right, hat. Like, let's not worry about that.
I should also incorporate that because sometimes I'm lazy with the hair.
Dude, agreed. Brushing your hair goes a long way. At least putting some water in and moving it around goes a long way. But no, dude, it looks great. I wasn't bashing you personally, okay?
Yeah, the hair, like I really like I can see it when I edit my videos. I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't take a nice shower on that day. I'm like, oh, like on that day I took a shower, and like I really feel it, like I can see it, and I'm like, oh shit, because I record every day, so there are also some bad days.
Yeah, one day you're like, dang, I literally rolled out of bed that day, and you can tell.
Exactly, yeah, but yeah, it's like I always argue, and I think it's a bad excuse. It's like it's authenticity, like
it's true,
but
true.
It's I think it's a cheap excuse. I should work on that.
Look, Robin, I'm not saying we need to wear suits every single day, but at least when people look at you, they shouldn't watch your content and be like, yeah, Robin's stinky right now. Like that's the bare minimum.
I get that, yeah. We have an end routine. Oh gosh, the end routine fits so perfectly. Oh gosh, I thought this end routine will be extremely random. We have an end routine where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is, and I literally, people will not believe me that I didn't pick that question. But the question is, do you think how you dress reflects your values in public, and is it important to dress well?
100%. Without a doubt. Like I am of two minds on this. One is kind of like the more Bitcoin perspective. It's like, I don't really believe you need to buy the branded, all like, you don't need to be wearing all the symbols. Like you don't need to go buy designer clothing. Like I don't really, personally, I don't like that. Like that's not really my style. But you should dress well. Like there is something to the kind of trad life people that's like, what happened to society? We used to all wear suits and now we look freaking horrible and we're all slobs and we're wearing sweats out in public and we're in sneakers. It's like, whatever happened to taking your appearance seriously? Because again, like whether you like it or not, whether you want to fight it or not, like how you look does affect how people look at you and what you say. It's like if you don't look good, most people probably won't really pay attention to what you're saying. It's like, again, another metric is when people tell you something, you should look at their life, and if you want to live their life, then you probably want to listen to what they're saying. And if you don't want to live their life, then you probably ignore it. And part of that comes across with, yes, like taking your appearance into consideration is super important. Like you need to focus on how you look. Like I do think that your appearance does affect how people respond to your message. And you can anecdotally take this from just like the traditional, the whole suit corner thing. Like I don't know, guys, if you've ever worn a suit, I was just on Wall Street. Like, if you ever wear a suit, like you do, like you feel better, people kind of respond better. Not saying I want to wear a suit every single day, but there is something to dressing nice that does affect how people respond to you and react to you. So, like, yes, I totally believe that you need to, basic requirements is get yourself a nice fitting wardrobe. You don't have to spend $20,000 to do it. You can just, buy piece by piece, but you should be kind of focused on how you look. It does really, really affect how the message is heard. And look, we could also go into more like Instagram, social media stuff is like, guys, we've all seen it. Like you get one, 10 out of 10 beauty on Instagram. She does a 7-second reel. And she's a millionaire. She's a celebrity. So you can try to fight the fiat system, or you kind of, play into human psychology. You can be like, oh no, that's the fiat system, bro. Like that's so fiat. Like, look, people respond to, yeah, look at us looking good there. See, look, so much better there. You're not going to listen to me here in a t-shirt and a hat on a Thursday morning rolling out of bed with a coffee. You'll listen to these guys in the suit, bro. Look at us. We look like we know what we're talking about. But yeah, I totally do believe your looks do affect how people respond to you. And I think we should take that into consideration. We've been arguing with ourselves, like, do we wear suits every single day? It's like, it feels inauthentic, but it also feels like a respect thing. So, don't be surprised if we do start wearing suits when we get a little more mature. We're maturing here, we're trying to look good, get the message spread. But also hoodies is our culture, and part of that is like the Bitcoin thing is like, you do kind of want to be OPSEC. You don't necessarily need to signal that you're a millionaire. But as you've seen, like people respond well to how you dress. Though after a certain point, you see the billionaires, they're just wearing hoodies and they just don't really care. And that's, you're not a billionaire yet, bro. So, dress well. Your mom will be happy. Your mom will be like, look at my son. He's looking good. And your girlfriend will like you a little more probably because you're not a slob and you actually take your appearance seriously. So yeah, I really do think it is important.
I love that message. And thank you so much, man, for taking your time. Before I let you go, where can people find you and Simply Bitcoin?
Yeah, man. So, of course, go to Simply Bitcoin on YouTube, on Rumble. Our Twitter is Simply Bitcoin TV. If you want to follow me, I don't really tweet as much, just so focused on making media. But my Twitter is at Optimist Fields on Twitter. And also, Simply Bitcoin on all of your podcasting apps. It's over there. So I'm sure if you just search Simply Bitcoin, you'll see us. Come hang out with us on YouTube. Or if you really want to have fun, go to Rumble and chill in the chat. They're the most savage on all of our stuff. The Rumble chat is wild. But yeah, just, come find us on YouTube. We do this basically every single day. There's content all day, every day, multiple types of content. So if you like to hear us rant, you want to hear us rant more, that's where you find us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Opti, for being on. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.